Brandon, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing awesome this fine day, this fine episode 6 day. I'm super excited to talk about baby steps. I think that was your idea to get your company ready for growth, sale, or rest.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey, and I've taught his course many times, and he talks about the baby steps to financial growth, and I think there's baby steps to business growth and scaling an organization. So
I
yeah,
love it.
little by little.
Sweet. Well, let's say hi to everyone. Everybody, welcome to the Talk Ops podcast, the video podcast for business owners who are ready to organize. Growing, selling, or handing off your business takes order. Brandon and Chris discuss everything related to organization, accountability, and the things that help you grow, sell, or even take a vacation from your business. We're your hosts. That's Brandon over there.
I'm Brandon.
And Chris. Um, Today we're gonna talk about we're on episode 6, how to baby step your company to growth, sale, or rest. Um, Last time we talked about goals, we talked about the top-down approach, but you can't shut down your company for weeks or months while you're organizing it for sale or organizing it at all. You have to be able to organize in bite-sized pieces, baby steps. So today we'll talk about how to baby step your way to a better organized company so you can grow better, get top dollar when you sell, and take a vacation without worrying. How does that sound?
That would be great.
Sweet. All right. Brandon, icebreaker question. The time you showed up expecting one thing and got another thing.
Uh, so many times to count. I've gotten that many times. So I get it a lot in meetings where you walk into a meeting and you think there's a certain agenda to the meeting, and then you find out, nope, this is not what we're talking about, and or oh, by the way, you are assigned a task that you were never expecting to get in the first place. So I've had that many times. I've had multiple situations where someone told me we were going to let an individual go. We're going to do it at the end of the day today. And then the next day I show up to work and they're still there. And I ask, what happened? Oh, we're going in this direction. We are now going to try to do this with this employee. It's like, okay, I had kind of organized things to go without a certain individual. And now we get to try to remap an organization with that individual. So I've had it many times. And it's called flexibility. That's what I've learned through all those times, how to be flexible in the unknown. What about you?
That's so good and businessy. Mine is a lot more personal. So I at first I thought like going to a like it's like you're invited to a fall, party and
Oh,
you
sure.
show up with a costume and it's not that kind of party.
Yeah.
Like for some reason I picture a woman in like a witch's hat and like all this stuff.
Yes.
Everybody else is just like dressed normal with a punch bowl.
Yeah.
No, mine was the time that we got invited to a family activity. Everybody was excited, because everybody was there in Arizona. And we showed up and then pretty soon one of the people at the party was like, all right, cool. So now everybody have a seat. We're gonna sit down. And they opened the laptop and it was this salesperson from Hawaii who was like selling
Oh,
it was an MLM, it was a multi-level marketing.
gotcha.
I'm like,
Oh boy.
I was
Yeah.
so irritated with my family member at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna go in a direction it was gonna be like a family intervention, but an MLM might even be worse.
Oh, intervention. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it required intervention for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Hmm.
all right. Well, let's get down to some of these questions that we outlined for today. So the first one, what has to come before you scale a business? what decisions do you have to make before you can scale the business?
That is a fantastic question. And I think my short answer, because I'm sure we're only going to make this a 5-minute podcast. Just kidding. It'll probably be a little bit longer. But I would say the short answer is making sure everything is in alignment with whatever level of scale you're currently at. If anything's out of whack, whether it's your sales process, your HR, your operations, your branding, your accounting, if any of those are out of alignment, i.e. not working well, you probably want to try to address them before you scale your business. Because if they don't work at your current scale, they'll never work at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
But that being said, I also don't encourage any of that to hold you back from wanting to scale either. There's always something to work on, and there's always something you can fine tune and perfect. So I don't want to say if there's just a problem, you can't scale. But if there's something grossly wrong, you got high turnover rates on your employees or something, the last thing you want to do is bring on twice as many customers and then half your company quits because you had HR issues to begin with, and now you can't serve your customers. You do damage to your brand and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of different details you could have, but I would say you'd want to have things in alignment and running relatively smoothly before you want to scale. That's my short answer.
Yeah. So like basically I would measure that by like how many fires are you putting out? Like are you putting out too many fires? Then you need to work on some stuff. If are you hardly putting out any fires? Like, yeah, things could be better, but you're not putting out any fires.
Yeah. Well, and I actually, to add to that, and this is a little bit to tie into our last episode.
Okay.
You are working in your business a lot, you're probably not ready to scale.
Yes. Good way to say it.
Once you can start working on your business, because you can get out of the day-to-day, that is when you need to start thinking about scale. And that's the perfect time. You have the time to actually start thinking about those bigger projects. If you're working in your business day to day, you're probably not ready to scale. So for those who might be catching us here, maybe hop back and listen to our previous podcast where we talked about working in your business versus on your business.
Yeah.
But that would probably be my divider line of when you should think about it.
Yeah, that's good. And it just kind of reminds me of that tension, that good tension and relationship between the visionary and the integrator. Because when you talk about putting out fires, I think about like hire an integrator to put out your fires, because guess what's going to happen? A good integrator is not going to want to put out fires. They're going to push that. They're going to create better processes. They're going to solve the problem because they don't want to spend their whole day putting out fires. I don't like it. I'm an integrator because I don't like extra work. I don't like doing mundane, putting out. I don't like calls at night, like when I'm at home, So you hire a good integrator, and they're not going to have a lot of tolerance for like having to put out fires all the time. They're going to go straight to that process and fix it, so you don't have those fires. So well, I think my answer is I loved your answer. My answer, I took it from like a top down, because that's always how I have to think, because I can't think otherwise. It comes from values and process. And that's something you'll hear me always say. It's just like, you want to scale, it's values and process. If you don't have your values and processes figured out, you're not going to scale. Your staff won't be able to scale without your values. Your culture won't be able to grow without values. Values are huge. And then processes follow that. And I think it was Pat Lencioni, but then I think Drucker also maybe said this before Lencioni, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you have one company who's like, oh, we're awesome at strategy, we're so complicated, and we have a whole bunch of data that we may or may not understand, and then there's a company that keeps it simple and they have a really good culture, there's trust, there's teamwork, that this company is most other things being equal, they're going to outperform that other company, just because, if you have to choose one, choose culture. you know,
Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
hire a process person for that culture.
Yes,
Then you have
exactly.
it all, right? So
Yep.
culture first.
Yeah. I think that one little key point that I think can be glossed over a ton that you just mentioned, it's trust. You have to have trust in your staff, your leadership, your managers. If you don't have trust, it is really going to hold things back because you don't want to scale because, well, I'm not confident that this person's going to pull their weight if we end up scaling this bigger, or I'm not confident that this is going to get done right if we move in this direction. And you got to have that level of trust amongst your staff beforehand. And I'll have to look it up. I heard from an HR rep back when I was working for the government. We had a really good head of HR, and she talked about a survey that you can do for each of your staff members, leadership included, and you kind of rate each person on their different aspects, the emotional burden they have on the business or organization, the productivity burden or hopefully help that they do. And you can, it's a scale to kind of grade each person and to see if they're above this, maybe they need to go because, or they need some significant help because they're not aligned with the business's organization or vision, and trying to get everybody in alignment before you scale. I'll have to see if I can find that survey or that grading scale, and we'll post it out there if I can find that.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, but trust
Like a
is key.
360 review kind of thing.
It was, but it was like a scale of 1 to 10, and you give them 2 points if they do this poorly, and if they don't, you don't add any points, and you just keep adding up points. And if they get above a 5 or 6, it's someone you should be seriously considering either having a conversation with and correcting, or if they're too far gone, get rid of them. I hate to say it,
Yep.
but
No,
they're just not aligned with it. So the goal is they should rank 0 on everything. They shouldn't be getting points. If they're getting points, that means they're a burden somewhere in the organization.
Well, and that goes into trust too, because like
Yep.
when we think of trust, sometimes we think of it like, oh, I believe they're honest about something, right? But it also is like, going back to, I think we used some sports analogies before. You have people on your team. Oh, well, here's the example that I gave. If I had the ball, guys would make runs because they knew that I wasn't just going to try to dribble it to the goal. They knew that I was going to pass it. So it wasn't trust like, oh, Chris is an honest guy. It was like trust like, okay, I know what he's gonna do. And I know he's gonna like I trust the ball's gonna be there. If I make a run, the ball will be where I'm going, right?
Yep.
I will be able to catch it in stride, right? Because I believe that, what's going on. Well,
Yeah.
I just remember one time it's a free kick. Sorry, I got a free kick on one side of the field, and I was like waiting for my guys to start moving. One guy just started streaking down the right side, and I'm like, "I got you." And so I just like put it up in the air, and just like because he was running to an empty spot, and I saw the empty spot. Oh man, he ran onto it and scored, and it was just the best. It was like connecting, that only happens when you have that trust. And it's not just trust intentions, it's your trust in their abilities too. And if he didn't think I could kick it that far accurately, he wouldn't have made the run, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
if he didn't think I would see him, he wouldn't have made the run. Or if he didn't think, and so a lot of this is like the competence of the people around me. And if I don't fire people who don't have the competence or the same level of desire, then I am punishing this person who's willing to make that run, who's willing to make that effort, because I'm tolerating, someone who's taking a free kick who's just like, like doesn't really care, is just gonna like mail it in. No, you want someone who's hungry, who wants to make that connection, you want that team morale, right?
Yes, 100%. Which actually I think leads really well into this next point. But how do you build this culture? How do you build this team that's going to fit the vision for the company or the organization or whatever? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think this is a great question for me because I work at a branding agency. So, Of course, my answer is going to be so some branding processes give you walk out with values. In fact, most of them I think do. There's some that you would do with like just a designer who's not trained in like branding, who's not
Mhm.
trained in like mission, vision, values, brand story, brand anthem, these things that really kind of give us a template, right? So, but what one of the things that how we do it is we get the executives in the room.
Mhm.
We go through a clear process. We tell them, here's what we're doing, here's why, here's how it works and why it's important. Then we go through the exercises and everybody contributes, right? Everybody talks, everybody, what does that word mean? What does that word mean to us? What does that, and so we have them choose and narrow down and call down to their top like 5 or 7 values. Now, this
Mhm.
is only 1/3 of that branding process because we have personality traits and then brand anthem, which is kind of your elevator pitch. It's a really nice elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Um, but the first part is those values. And the reason it's first is because you have to know what you stand for, what you're willing to, like the hills that you're willing to die on, right? You need those 3 to 6, 5 to 6, or whatever values and you have to know what they mean, and they have to mean something to you in the organization. And so
Yep.
all those executives get into a meeting, and now we have values. And now, like 3 months later, do you think any of those executives can disagree with the values they helped create? No.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they had a say, and they talked and they were passionate, and you can't go back on that after you've done that, unless you're just a
Yep.
total slime ball and you shouldn't be in the organization anyway, right? Like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that didn't happen. We never said that. It's like, come on, nobody does that. So that
Yeah.
tends to build a lot of trust because now new employees, they know your values, and they're just words on a wall. You're building that
Yep.
culture when you hire, how you reward your employees, how they take initiative. If they have if a manager has a decision to make, oh, we have a person who they're sick, or they're pregnant, and she's whatever, and she needs extra something, right? And it's like, well, our values tell us that we have that, we should do that, we should help them out. um, Also, when you create processes, the process can build in like, oh, she's on maternity leave. Every manager has the discretion to give an extra week or whatever. We don't tell employees this. It's just something that managers know and they're allowed to do. And it's like going above and beyond, taking care of people. It's built into your process, right? And so
Yep.
values impact everything downstream from them. And so that's what I would say. I would say values, personality traits, brand story, brand anthem. Those are how you start. Those are how you put the flag in the ground and you let everybody know what you're all about.
Yep. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Company I work for actually pretty similar. That went through and created a whole set of values, got everybody's input. I mean, from the top all the way to the bottom, and had disagreements. And hey, we think this should be a value, if not this, and worked through it to the point of where we even did post all the values up on the wall. If you look at in the store, they're all up on the wall. It's what is the topic, and then a little description of what that value means.
Mm.
And when there are issues, I mean, we have Monday morning meetings with the whole organization. And if things aren't going right, we literally can say, literally look at the wall right there. There's our value. This is what we said we wanted to do, and this is what we agreed to. Why are why is what's happening going against that? What
Yep.
do we need to do better to adhere to these values? And we've called people out over time, and even when you have to take it one on one, and it's a leadership doing a review with an employee who's not up to steam or up to stuff, you sit there and, hey, you helped agree to this value. Why are we not doing this? And you realize by what you're doing, you're going against every aspect of it. Because then we also, our company, we have a long version and a short version. So up on the wall is the short version. It's just like we value our customers with a little 1 or 2 sentence description. but we actually have a long form version of our values that have like 5 or 6 bullet points under each value of really flushing out what that value is. So it's not just a sentence, because when at least we felt when it's just a sentence, there's room for gray area. Well, I thought it meant this, or I thought it meant that. And
Yep.
we actually flushed it out to our value statements, like almost 2 pages of flushing out each of the 4 or 5 core values. And it means this to this person, it means this to this person, and in this situation, here's what it means. And then, like you said, build it into all of our processes that we're going to trust you're going to do this because this is what our core values are. Therefore, we can set the process up in this way. But if you don't do it, you're going to be hurting other people in the organization because you didn't follow the process.
Mhm.
So it's built into the day-to-day activities of it.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Well, let me ask you this next question. So we talked about culture. How do you create the culture? So now let's talk about how do you create the processes that fit your goals? Any thoughts on that, Brandon?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, you came up with a good one. I think this starts at the leadership level. I think it's a 2-step process. Number one, you got to find the problems in the organization, and that those can come from a million different places. It can come from looking at your accounting, it can look at your HR problems, you can look at your sales funnel, and you look through all these different areas of your business. Again, hopefully working on your business and looking at it from a 10,000-foot view, find the problems, and then, okay, what are the logical solutions to these problems? And you can start looking through your different processes. That's where we start. But then once you think you've narrowed it down, well, actually, it can be part of the narrowing down process as well. But okay, we have these 4 different solutions to fixing this problem. Okay, which of these, one of the filters we'll go through is which ones align with our values in our organization. One of the values that we have in our organization is do it right the first time. So when we are setting up a new process or trying to correct a problem, and we got 4 different solutions, okay, one of the filters we look at is, okay, if we do it this way, are we going to have to fix it later on? And if we do, that is not aligning with our core value of do it right the first time. So let's just get rid of it. And we move on to the next process, our next solution to our problem of, okay, is this a good long-term solution, or are we going to have to fix it again because we didn't do it right the first time? Is it a Band-Aid?
Yep.
And we use that core value to filter out our solutions. That's just one of them. I mean, we got a core value around customer service and stuff, and valuing our internal and external customers. Well, does this process bring more value to our customer? If not, it doesn't align with our core value. Get rid of it. It's not a good solution. So we use our value as a lens to fix problems or to critique our processes. That's how we do it internally.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's good. So where I'm at, I have a lot of confidence that my CEO is gonna be kind of the gatekeeper of values. So that frees me up a little bit, and I focus on processes. And so because but if I were at another place and there weren't values, I would be pushing super hard for values because those have to come first. But where I'm at right now, and you mentioned, getting feedback from people. And I think one of the things that I thought of that I want to mention is that as a manager, if you have someone who's working, if you have a manager who's under you, or even just an employee, and you want to see if they're management material, don't let them tell you, oh, everything's fine. No, you need to meet with them, and they need to, it doesn't matter if there are no problems. Things can always be better, and you need to be asking them, all right, what are the top 3 things we could be improving right now? What are the top 3 things that are bugging you? Like, and rank them. Don't come to me and tell me there's nothing wrong. Don't come to me and tell me there's no room for improvement, because that tells me you don't care, or you don't know, and you're not paying attention, right? So
Yep.
so that's something I want from any manager, for sure, any manager who's reporting to me. And then maybe anybody else. I mean, I'm gonna be coaching them to tell me those things, because we do one-on-ones. I do one-on-ones with everyone who reports to me. And so
Okay.
so I have that opportunity, and that's something I asked them to do. In line with that, though, like, how would we know? I mean, I'm always, people are always coming up with the ideas. I had someone come up with an idea the other day. Oh yeah, we want to do this. And I'm just like, great, that sounds like a great idea, but why? Like, what is it going to accomplish? Is there a problem it's solving? Like, tell me more, because it needs to tie into a bigger thing. I don't know how important that is compared to other things. Like, there are a lot of good ideas out there. Like, I need to know
Yeah.
what idea is should get executed, and what should wait. What's going to pay off the best, right?
Yep.
So so for me, I'm going to take it from the practical measurement standpoint. I'm going to say that the core of how you build processes that fit your goals is measurement. And it starts with knowing your goals, and it has to execute your values as well. Um, so are your measurements clear and focused, or are they complicated? So I've been in
Yep.
meetings where the numbers come through, and Brandon, you're probably better at measurement than I am. So I'd be interested in your thoughts, but I've been in meetings where I'm like, all right, I'm getting a bunch of numbers and I don't understand who cares? Who cares about these numbers, right? I don't know how they tie into the big picture. And so
Hmm.
when I when I measure for clients, what I've actually put in place at Resound, because I'm like, I don't want this just to be like numbers that clients see. Um, we give them numbers, but we give them three recommendations. Like when we look at analytics or ads or anything like that, three recommendations. But we don't just tell them a recommendation, because a recommendation doesn't have any context. What we also tell them is, here's who should do it. Should it be Resound, or should it be you who does this, right?
Hmm.
Here's who we think should do it. Here's how many hours we think it'll take, or how much it's going to cost. Here's what it'll do for you and why it's worth it.
Hmm.
And then we rank those so that they can see. And so it has a lot more context. It's like, this one is really going to pay off for you. And if you want to pay for it, cool, or maybe it's included in your scope already, and we're already going to do it, right? But the
Yeah.
point is that those measurements, goals, right? So from goals come measurements. From measurements come an opportunity for fixing things and making them better, right? And then
Yep.
that's where you get that context of recommendations and prioritization, and help me understand how much it's going to cost me as the client, right? How much is it going to cost me as
Yep.
to run the budget? So
Hmm.
let me see if there's anything else on that, because I have notes. Oh yeah, they have to be simple. They have to be simple. If you're hitting someone with a ton of numbers, an executive, they're gonna be like, look, tie it in for me. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you think is happening. Tell me what's going on here.
Yep.
Or give them a funnel, so they can see how things are going. Give them something
Yep.
they can understand and it's actionable, because executives are not going to want to see things that are not actionable. And so make it actionable,
Yeah.
make it simple for everybody to understand. And so that when the action items are taken away, everybody can see, like your copywriter, your whoever you have working for, your HR manager, whatever, they can understand what everybody's looking at. If 95% of people can't clearly understand what you're showing them, you need to simplify it for the meeting, or you need to,
Yep.
save it for, people to do.
Yep. Numbers, like you said, yeah, that's a pretty big part of my life. And trying to understand who your audience is, because some people do understand more than others,
Mhm.
and presenting the data to correctly for the people you're reporting to in that particular meeting. Um, so sometimes going along with the theme of baby steps, like I've worked out a full long analysis and I'm like, okay, here's our next 6 steps we need to take in bite-sized pieces. We need to do this first. This should take a week, and do this first next. This should take a week, and you keep going through all these things, and they just get lost in all the details. And it's like, okay, let's restart the meeting. here's step one. Let's get that done this week. End of meeting. That's just the end of it. And it's not even worth, even though you've worked out all the numbers and stuff like
Right.
that, it's not worth showing all of it.
You give them bite
Unless you
size.
can-
You give them the big goal, the big why, and then you say, okay, the task and the purpose. That's it.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
want to ask
actually,
you.
that's the project. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to ask you because we're running out of time. I want to make sure we get to the baby steps. We have a couple here. I wonder if we could go through them real quick. And let me frame it up. So the question is, how do you use the concept of baby steps to get things done? And we have 3 steps that we have listed. I might have listed these steps. So I don't know if you're fully in agreement, but maybe this is like a model we can use.
Sure.
Since it's mine, do you want me to read through them and then I'll get your response and have you take a stab at why? Number 1 of 3 is get your people in a room each week, review goals and values. That's it. Review goals and values. Is that, yeah.
Yep.
If you're a small company, right? Like I'm just thinking like you're not a huge company. You have a couple of people on staff, a couple of managers at the most. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Monthly. So step 2, monthly, ask them each to suggest 3 actions they can take over the quarter to grow toward the goal and the values. Check in with them each week on those things.
Yep. I think that's fair.
Okay. And then I'll ask you for your comments when we wrap up too. So the third one is then you'll notice as time goes on, people will be building. Oh, maybe it's not a step. Maybe it's just, you will notice as time goes on, people will be building out their departments or areas of work in ways that express your value and align with your processes and goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with all those. And that third one, you'll notice that people will build as long as you got the right people. If they're not right,
Yes.
they're not going to build. And that's one of the ways you can tell whether you've got the right people, particularly in a management or leadership type position, is whether they're working at continuously building on their department and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say something, but I'm glad you read this first. It's a project I've been working on for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks at our organization. I've been rebuilding our database for them because I have some IT background. And one of the big things was the leadership decided we need this database rebuilt. It just isn't managing the information correctly and stuff like that. And for this particular one, it was their CRM software. All their customers basically are in there. Well, they've got over 3,000 entry points and stuff like that. Well, okay, how long is this going to take? And well, okay, hold on. Let's scope the project out. So you take a couple days first and figure out what is the scope of this project and how should it be set up and what needs to be rebuilt and all this
about the tables and yep.
So I kind of report to 2 different people from time to time, and one of the guys, he's more the visionary, the other guy's more operationally, please map out the whole thing. So I have to map out the whole thing for him, but then on the visionary, it's like, okay, what's the next thing we need to do? And had to break out, okay, hey, we're going to clean up this portion of the database first. Here's the first 100 customers we need to make sure are in there correctly and accurately, and going through them little step by step. I've got like 6 steps of how to clean this whole thing up, but we're just going, here's what the next step is going to be.
Yeah.
And we kind of go through piece by piece, and then it cleans up different reports, and then you can show better data and baby step by baby step. It started with, here's the big picture, the vision. We need this whole database rebuilt. Then we had to break it down into some pieces. Here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then inside of phase 1, here's the actual action items that we needed to do inside of there. And now, this phase should take us a week or 2, and then this phase is going to take a month, and go through that same thing. But it went exactly through this step that you talked about. I mean, we had to get everybody in a room, get the goals and the values. Then now we're on to a little bit more monthly meetings of, are we actually hitting the targets to have this thing? Because it's, for us, it's a whole Q2 project because it's a big enough project, and now meet almost monthly on where are we? So,
Yeah, the strength of this process is really basically it's like, what is the process? Like, get your people to tell you. Like, your people should be telling you what they're seeing, problems they're noticing, and then
yep,
and then you tell them too, and then you get them to give you solutions. You don't do all the work. If you're making all the suggestions, you're the one who owns the ideas. They don't.
yep,
And people execute. It's too much work. I don't like it. It's too much work, right?
yeah,
The one thing I want to say though before we go, because how do you set up that meeting? And it's kind of our last point. We did a whole walkthrough of an L10 meeting, right? And we
yep.
talked about what that is. So please, if you want to know more about that, look at our channel. And you'll see, I think it's episode 2 is when we did that, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So, all right, Brandon, did you have anything to add as before we wrap up?
No, actually, it was going to be more of a summary than anything. Was going through my mind of what we've all talked about,
Yep.
and I mean, we started out. What were the baby steps to scale a business? And it all started at the top level. You need to have your goals and your visions figured out and get in alignment from a leadership level to figure out, are you ready to scale? And then, assuming you are, and you've got all the visions and things that you need to scale the business, then you got to pass that down and create the culture that's going to support that scaling aspect, hiring right and managing people right. And then once you got your vision from leadership, you got the right team in place. Now it's creating the processes to execute on scaling that business and going through scoping projects out, having weekly meetings, and going through all those different processes to scale your business. So it all starts from the top, kind of like we talked on our last podcast of top down management and things like that. And then working through the organization to scale your business. So,
Love it.
yep.
Awesome. Good summary. So, everybody, thanks for joining us. This has been another episode of the Talk Ops with Brandon and Chris podcast, where we encourage business owners to organize their business to get more money at sale and then help your kids succeed if you're handing it off to them, or just take a vacation without worrying about what's going on at work. So please comment, like, subscribe, and then hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss an episode. We love your comments and questions. We have previously committed to answering questions that you put in there live from now on. So put those questions in those comments, and then thank you so much for joining us. Brandon, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk with you
As
next
always. Yep. We'll talk to you later.
time. All right.
All right.